The U.S. Senate fails to pass the BornAlive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, essentially voting against a ban on infanticide.
This bill does not address abortion. It doesn't address the women's health care issues. What this bill does is address the health care of a baby.
We are not here to debate abortion. That is not what this bill is about that Senator Sass has introduced. We are here today to decide whether or not it should be legal in the United States of America to kill or neglect an infant who's been born alive after a botched abortion.
The Senate held a roll call vote Monday on the BornAlive bill, which was introduced by Nebraska Senator Ben Sass. If passed, it would have required doctors provide appropriate medical care to newborns who survive botched abortions. While the bill received a bipartisan majority, it failed to receive the 60 votes required to break a Democratic filibuster. The final roll call vote was 53 to 44. Those who voted against the bill include 10 senators who identify as Catholic. We should note there were 3 Democratic senators who broke with their party and supported the bill: Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, and Doug Jones of Alabama. Following the vote, President Donald Trump tweeted, "This will be remembered as one of the most shocking votes in the history of Congress. If there is one thing we should all agree on, it's protecting the lives of innocent babies." From Capitol Hill, we are now joined by Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Senator, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you. First off, what is your reaction to the results of this week's BornAlive roll call vote?
I think people looked at this vote yesterday and said, "You have got to be kidding me. Why in the world would anybody say, let's deny care to a baby that's been born alive and survived a botched abortion?" And that is simply what this bill was. It was deliver the same standard of care. And I will tell you, what it shows is that to Democrats, abortion is more important than life. It shows that infanticide is okay with them. And to say we're comfortable with denying care to a baby that has survived an abortion, it is beyond imaginable. I think everyone was surprised that they pretty much in lockstep went down there and supported the party line, brought Governor Northam's words to life, if you will, in a legislative action.
Senator, a growing number of your Senate colleagues are Democratic presidential candidates for 2020. Those senators Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, all voted against the BornAlive bill.
That's right.
What is your message to them, Senator, specifically these Democratic presidential candidates who voted against this ban on infanticide?
Well, and what we have to realize is that the right to life is that very first right. And it is so important that we preserve that. And when a baby is born, you have to make certain that that baby receives that standard of care, that it is not denied them. And I would ask them to rethink this and to rethink the message that they are sending. Because human life is precious. It is a gift from God. It is something that we want to make certain that we realize there is a right and individuals have that right. And you've got a lot of Republicans that stood and said, we are going to protect that right and be the voice for those that are the most vulnerable among us.
You officially took the office as senator last month, and the first bill you introduced into the Senate was another pro-life effort, the Title X Abortion Provider Prohibition Act. What should our viewers know about this bill?
Yes, it was the first piece of legislation that we introduced. And what it says is Title X funds go to providers of women's health care. This is health care provided to those that are underserved. And that if you provide abortions, you cannot receive Title X funds. And it draws that line and it says abortion providers need not apply for taxpayer funds under Title X. But if you're a healthcare clinic, a community healthcare clinic, and you are providing healthcare to women in the underserved population, absolutely make application for those funds. Here is why it is important. We know that money is fungible. We know that abortion providers sometimes put all that money in one pot, and you don't know what is going to women's health care and what is going to abortion services. And when you hear governors like Northam in Virginia, when you look at what they're doing in New York, you have to say, we have to halt this, because you're talking about terminating those pregnancies late in that third trimester and right before a baby is born. So it is important to make that distinction. Now, basically, the president has taken the action that is necessary through executive order, and he has said we can defund we can prohibit these funds from going to these abortion clinics. And please note, we've got 655 abortion clinics in this country, but we have over 13,000 community health centers that are providing health care, accessible health care, to women who are underserved. We want to make certain the money goes where there's the greatest need.
Absolutely. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
We continue the conversation now with Mallory Quigley, the Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List. Mallory, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Catherine.
First of all, what is your reaction to this BornAlive roll call vote, and what does this mean for the future of this legislation?
Yes, well, eyes are sort of pivoting now to the House. We saw 30 members of Congress, led by the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, head over to the other chamber the other night for the vote. And I think that shows the momentum that the members are feeling as the attention really turns towards them. Now, every day that the House has been in session, a pro-life member has gone down and asked for unanimous consent. They've asked for a vote on this legislation, and so far that's been denied. The whip, Steve Scalise, he's leading what's called a discharge petition, which is basically an attempt to override Nancy Pelosi blocking a vote on this bill. So that takes a couple of weeks to gather the signatures, and when that ripens, they're hoping to have enough signatures gathered, when it ripens, that's a technical term, to be able to force a vote on the floor and to get these members of Congress on the record.
That is so important. And in light of this extreme abortion vote, there is a new Marist Knights of Columbus poll released just this week that shows a dramatic shift of attitudes towards abortion among Democrats.
Yes.
What should we know about this?
Well, I thought this was a very encouraging poll. They looked at how people identify themselves, pro-life or pro-choice, last month compared to this month, and there's been a dramatic shift among Democrats and among people under the age of 45. So, young people in this country, and they're finding that they identify more and more as pro-life, and I think that's because of the conversation that we've seen surrounding the bill passed in New York, Governor Northam's comments in Virginia, and the extreme positions being advocated by the abortion lobby. And so people are really turning away. This clarity is truly a gift. For decades, the pro-life movement have said, look, this is how radical the pro-abortion lobby is. They want abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, paid for by taxpayers and beyond. And now we have the other side, our opponents, telling us themselves in their own words.
That being said, let's talk about 2020.
Sure.
Every U.S. senator who is running for president voted against this BornAlive bill. What kind of repercussions will they face, political repercussions for this in 2020?
I mean, I think they're going to face massive political repercussions. It's not just unpopular with a majority of Americans nationwide, but with their own base. It's becoming more and more unpopular with their own base, as we saw in that Marist poll. SBA did a poll earlier this month. 77% of voters support the BornAlive Abortion Survivors Protection Act.
Wow.
Only 9% are opposed. So I don't know who Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, who they think that they're going to represent, but it's a very small minority, and people are going to remember this level of extremism. We've reached a boiling point in the pro-life movement over this issue, and I think the burden really is on the extremists to say, why the majority of Americans are wrong to have had such a visceral reaction to abortion, infanticide, late-term abortion.
Right, and finally, Mallory, I want to get your reaction to some big pro-life news that broke last
Yes.
week. The Trump administration finalized the Protect Life rule.
That's right.
Can you tell us what this does and does not do?
Yes, well, so this, the Protect Life rule basically says that abortion facilities cannot be co-located in the same place as Title X family planning clinics. So if you're an abortion business, you can't also be in the business of contraception. And if Planned Parenthood refuses to comply with these regulations, because we know that they're regularly mixing up Title X activities with abortion, that they stand to lose $60 million. It's their second largest source of our taxpayer funding. It's a huge victory for the pro-life movement.
Mallory Quigley with the Susan B. Anthony list. Thanks for being with us this big pro-life week.
Very big week.
Thank you.